I don't know if you heard the story of the little boy who walked up to his dad and said, "Do married people live longer than unmarried people, Dad?" Dad thought for a moment and said, "No, my son, it only seems longer for them." The marriage course is a brilliant way in which it sort of bridges time. It takes you backward into your marriage to reflect back into where you started off, looks forward into the dreams that you can possess, and also helps you to see your present status. When we first announced the marriage course in our local church, we knew that the Indian and Eastern mindset did have a hurdle to cross. Because very many times people think, if I attend a marriage program, it means people are going to assume I'm having a bad marriage. So we sort of put this sub-tagline to it. We said, this marriage course is really a place in which we want to try and help good marriages to become better. And I recall still, for the first time we did it at church, I told the church that my wife Miriam and me were going to be the first ones to register to be a part of it. And I remember some years later, when we were expecting our little daughter, and we once again chose to go through the marriage course. It's fantastic that someone realizes for about 3 hours on a Monday night where we used to run the course, your mobile phone was switched off, there was no interruption, and you actually looked eye to eye. And your spouse and you could spend time like you've never done in a long time. The marriage course has some very realistic tools that help you to assess your marriage. It looks at the foundations of a marriage and then helps you to look at where you are, and further goes on to speak about the value of time in the relationship, and beautifully moves on to harder parts, including the tough parts of reconciliation and forgiveness. Of course, there's a celebratory side where you look at the joy of marriage and enjoying life, even that of a physical relationship that's gifted within the marriage. All this again is done in a very, very friendly setting. Particularly so because the couples speak to themselves with no one around them to be part of the discussion. Where we ran it, we only took about 14 couples every time we did it. In a floor space that was almost a few thousand square feet in size, we had only 14 couples placed at a great distance between each other. Each got a table. The table was set every week to sort of match the theme. Perfumes, colors, flowers were set in place. The entire space was again decorated to fit the mood of the session. And as people came in, there was a hosting team that welcomed them. Their snacks, their teas, their soups all came to the table at which they sat to interact at. And then, of course, there was a team that was praying all through the evening session for each one of those couples as the couples went through the course. Nikki and Silla Lee have been commended globally for what they're doing for couples. And it's a privilege for us in India to receive material that they've written and to see how well it integrates even into our culture. We must remember that many couples would have differences of thought, sometimes even deeper difficulties in their relationship, sometimes even deeper difficulties in their relationships. But through it all, you find that couples may find it easier to speak to one another without a counselor listening and thereby come to their own helps. I used to say in the marriage course at church, and if you actually discuss some of these issues you're discussing here tonight, back at home, probably a few pots and pans or forks and knives would have flown about the airspace. But because you're in the ambience of the house of God or in a quiet place where there are others around you, and of course the Spirit of God speaking to you, you're able to discuss, speak, and even come to terms with where you are and what you must do. At the end of the course, we not only have a celebration time, but we'd also have a renewal of marriage vows. And during that time, we had a communion service. Most of the time, every couple that went through it would end up in tears with a reaffirmation of love, finding their love rekindled because of what they've been through in the course. I must also add that the marriage course has been a great inviting space for people from the other faiths. We've had couples come and tell us, we're not Christians, but we'd like to go through this course. And it's been amazing that they came into the course and then finally said, we'd like to actually come into a church service, and have found their way to examine the Christian gospel. I highly commend the marriage course as a wonderful welcome tool that helps the Indian church to help its families to bond, to grow closer, and to stay firm. I also want to tell you, pastors and counselors, that your job becomes easier because I realized as a local pastor to a church that had many hundreds, if not about 1,000+ people in it, I understood in the church that my marriage counseling times dropped tremendously after we ran the marriage course at church. And we ran it on a Monday night so that traveling husbands and wives could be there over the weekend in the city and then extend to Monday night and fly out on a Tuesday maybe. So you can do it your own way, but it's important to have a great hosting team, a team that's praying, and an ambience that helps people to be just comfortable as they share their lives and their stories. And what a blessing to just remember that this tool is given to us for the here and now, that it might build the upcoming times and the future for our families.